tonight's thought. I got an idea for a movie. Doesn't everybody? But no, I think this is a good. I think this is a good one. This is an idea for our times, where everything has to be posted to social media. You know, if you don't take a picture of it and post it, it never happened. So this is an idea about a guy who is out one night for a walk. And I don't know, he's kind of depressed. Maybe he just had a fight with his girlfriend or his wife or somebody. And he's walking in an industrial part of town, and there's railroad tracks. And he can't be sure at first, but he thinks that about 100 yards away, there's a bum who seems to be walking around. He's kind of drunk. And he suddenly passes out right there on the railroad tracks as a train is coming on. And the guy freaks out. He doesn't know what he should do, except just to rush up to the man and pull him off the railroad tracks. And he manages to do that and pick him up in heroic fashion, throw him over his shoulders, and just as the railroad train passes, he tosses him out of the way and saves his life. And here's this guy. He's just done a heroic thing, probably the most heroic thing of his entire life. And the drunk is passed out and doesn't acknowledge that his life was just saved. And there's no one around to recognize this amazing feat that this man just pulled off. And he's left with this empty feeling. So he goes home and he kind of tells his girlfriend about it, but she's not really interested because she's still mad at him. And the rest of the movie, he's wrestling with this existential dilemma. You know, should I be selfless and just be glad that I saved this man and he can go on and have a fruitful life? Is just me knowing enough to satisfy myself, or do I have to let everybody know about it? Do I have to go to parties and make it be a story and try to publicize myself as the guy who saved a drunk from getting hit by a train? You know? And I don't know, maybe he just goes on wrestling with this dilemma, and it's just eating away at him that he can't tell anybody this amazing thing that he did, and he just kind of goes on and lives his life. He goes to his boring job. He's dissatisfied, you know, just with the daily grind of living. And he gets even more mad when he sees people getting praise for relatively monotonous things. You know, like he sees somebody maybe helping an old lady across the street, and suddenly a crowd appears that just praises that guy for doing this kind thing. And he's just like, you know what I did? I saved a guy from being hit. Yeah. I don't know if this would make a good short film or a feature-length film, or if it would make a good movie at all, but I think that that's something for our times, you know. The idea that life is just full of monotony, with occasional punctuations of amazing things that we do. And there can be this kind of depression if the amazing things that we do go unrecognized or unrewarded by other people. You know, we're supposed to be doing these things just to be good citizens and to be selfless. But I don't know. It's kind of that whole thing. You know, if a tree falls in a forest and nobody's around, it doesn't make a sound. I don't know. That's just tonight's thought. It's kind of like this podcast, you know. I feel like I'm doing pretty good work here, but nobody's really listening to it or commenting, so does it matter the work I do? I don't know. Well, from Birmingham, Alabama, it's the Midnight Citizen Show. I'm your host, Mike Booty. Thank you for listening, if you are listening. You know, I started out talking about that idea for a movie I had, and I didn't realize I would reach that revelation that maybe this is essentially me. Because not everybody, you know, comes and does a podcast on a Friday night religiously like I do. And I feel like it's a pretty unique thing to do. It's something that definitely gives me self-worth. And I can see that some people are listening. I think I have consistent listeners every week. I mean, I can see the numbers, but I never get any comments. So, I don't know. They're just like listening passively if they are just, maybe they subscribed a while back and they just forgot that they subscribed to me, and that's how they, that's how it's reflected in the numbers. I don't know. I just spilled some of my coffee, damn it. Who wouldn't want to listen to the show? I don't know. Yeah, you know, tonight I was hanging out after work with some friends, and my friend Josh was over there, and he does a webcomic, RG Bros, and we were sort of, every time we get together, we ultimately talk about that we put all this work into something that gives us a lot of satisfaction, but is that enough? Or do we have to have this, you know, legion of followers who listen to us or read our comics in order to feel validated in what we do? And like always, whenever we get together, we never could come up with an answer to that question. We essentially had to excuse ourselves from the party, and at the same time, and Josh, as I speak, is now at his house drawing his webcomic. And I'm doing my podcast. It's our regular Friday night rituals. Oh. I don't know. I just kind of had this feeling back in December when I was at Disney World and walking around the Magic Kingdom all day long and just noticing that, you know, most of the Disney World experience is a lot like life. You know? You just spend most of the time walking between attractions, standing in line, looking at your watch, waiting for occasional bursts of excitement. You know. And then when it's over, you just go back to what you were doing. I don't know. Exciting way to start tonight's show off. It's showtime, folks. Yeah. I was watching that movie All That Jazz earlier this week, and just that movie has some amazing moments in it when, you know, Joe Gideon is played by Roy Scheider, you know, from Jaws, is waking up every morning. He's getting in the shower. He's going through his morning routine. He's taking his Dexedrine. And he ultimately just has to look himself in the mirror and go like, you know, it's showtime, folks. And just get on with his day. You know? Even though that's all going to be just the same thing every day, you know, taking crap from people, trying to do your job, just having something to do. Sort of relate to it lately. You know, just the weeks are kind of bordering together lately. I don't know. I've been under like a lot of stress lately in my life. You know, personal life's been okay. I have good friends. I have a wife, and you know, not a bad thing to come home to every night. You know, work is just kind of like, I work for a nonprofit. I kind of feel like a paid volunteer sometimes. You know, and financially, you know, it's tough, you know, to to pull it together. I don't know if you work for a nonprofit, but you know, it's financially it's very tough. You know, I've kind of had a lot of revelations lately where it's like, you know, I'm in my mid-30s. Just never can seem to, like, get ahead or anything. And, you know, I look on all these people I graduated high school with. They seem to have jobs and children. Not saying I want children, but just they definitely have all these things that seem to validate you, like, as an adult, you know. And, I don't know. Sometimes in finances, I just feel like I'm drowning, you know. I don't know. I was talking to a coworker of mine today, and you know, we were sort of saying that we just kind of feel like we're drowning a little bit, and she was saying, you know, all you got to do is just sit there and, you know, take some deep breaths. Just try to stabilize yourself. And I said, well, yeah, I can take deep breaths, but Jesus. It's hard to take deep breaths when you're drowning. You know. But, you know, this is the ultimate stabilizer, is coming in here and to the studio here and doing a show. On the television over here on the 24-inch wall-mounted flat screen, I got some Night Flight going. Some old animated music videos from the 1980s to keep me company here late at night. You know. And let's see here. Yeah, I actually got a candle. Yeah, I made a candle this week. The latest in the Midnight Citizen line of candles. We've got a... we got a tobacco coffee candle. Made with a unique mail-ordered scent. You know, I'm going to light this thing up. Have it burning. But I hope your week has been going well as I light this candle. Try to... Oh, God. Okay. Thought the lighter was broken. Yeah, put that down there. Anyway. And, let's play Jeopardy here. Let's play a round of Jeopardy. Always good for, when I start out a show by depressing myself. Alexa, play Jeopardy. Oh, God. They changed the soundtrack.
And welcome, players. Let's take it away.
Today's first category is the 50 states. Forbes says this state, the USA's most populous, has the most billionaires.
What is California?
Correct.
Yeah, that's right.
The second category is supporting actress Oscar winners. Lupita Nyong'o won for her role in this Best Picture winner.
Repeat? What? Lupita Nyong'o?
That is incorrect. What? The correct response was, what is 12 Years a Slave?
Oh, well.
The third category is the Queen's English. Victoria Beckham went by the stage name that Brits used to mean upper class.
What is Posh Spice?
Great. The fourth category is general science. In humans, this chromosome is exclusively found in males.
What is the X chromosome? Sorry.
No,
what?
The correct
Y?
response was, what is Y?
Oh, God.
The fifth category is
one of those.
Special double K. The response is a word with a double K. This Jewish holiday is an 8-day festival of lights.
What is Hanukkah?
Great. The final category for today is skimming the magazines. Goofus and Gallant debuted in this children's magazine in 1948.
What is Highlights for Children?
That's right.
Oh my God, really?
Let's see how you did today.
Not too bad. You got 4 out of 6 clues correct. Keep playing to improve your knowledge. You scored in the top 31% of players today. You answered 7 of 12.
I had no idea that highlights for children was so old. 1948. I'm surprised I actually remember Highlights for Children magazine. That was like a God. That was like something I read in the dentist office. You know, every time I had to go and get my braces adjusted. So, also, by the way, I shouldn't say that I haven't gotten comments in a while on the Midnight Citizen. I actually did get, I put a call to action on last week's show to ask listeners for their favorite movies. Because I know that's a really cliched poll to take, but I was kind of thinking that it actually does take a lot of thought. Because you can't just say your favorite movie is like Schindler's List. Because, I mean, honestly, when are you just going to put on Schindler's List, you know? I was thinking just like movies that you just, whenever you think about them, you have to put them in. Or you can watch them, you know, just endlessly. I mean, I think at the end of the day, one of my favorite movies is Wayne's World, you know. I can put that movie in no matter what mood I'm in. So, yeah, actually, Steve got back to me. And, he wrote a couple because he had to rethink it. His favorites are Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That's definitely one of mine. Fight Club, The Terminator, The Last Unicorn. I don't really understand that one, but, you know, if that's your jam. And Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Yeah. I have not seen Return of the King since I saw it in the theater back in, like, 2003. The Terminator's a fantastic movie. I can definitely put that one on whenever. I've never seen The Last Unicorn. And Fight Club, my wife recently watched that one and said, you know, it's still pretty good. I haven't seen it since I was, like, in high school, but, so that's pretty good. But he also said, Steve also mentioned that this really has to be done by era. He can't not mention Ghost World, Alien, Dark City, and Memento. All those movies are fantastic. But I totally get what you're saying, Steve. I mean, sometimes I think about just certain eras of movies, and I'm like, well, how do you distinguish between, like, the 70s with, like, the French Connection or something like that, and in the 1990s with a movie like, I don't know, Wayne's World or something? I mean, you know, it's like they're not separate. I mean, it's really tough to boil down a top 5 best favorite movies list, you know, I guess. So, yeah. But keep those comments coming in. Thank you, Steve. Nobody else got back to me, but it's definitely something that to look into. Let's see. All right, listen to some music here.
White noise of the city rumbling to the dirty roar of the trains, the dirty roar of the trains. Then in the window instantly you slipped under my reflection, my reflection. Why, hello, late night goddamn tired. I'm tired of being here. I know some peace and quiet. Would it be so hard when I love to get excited? But my mind just keeps rewinding. I know some peace and quiet. Could it be so hard? How many times can I see the same faces smiling on TV? How many times can I hear the same story that isn't real? Well, I don't need anyone. I don't need anyone. Because I hate them all. Because I hate them all. Well, I'm so goddamn tired. I'm tired of being here. I love some peace and quiet. Could it be so hard when I'd love to get excited? But my mind just keeps rewinding. I'd love some peace and quiet. Could it be so hard?
Could It Be So Hard by the Degs is what you just heard. Before that, we had Pete Lund with a song called Subway Cameo. Welcome back to the Nightbird. It's fun playing DJ, you know. No, this is the Midnight Citizen Show. Welcome back into the studio here. And, it's like the new It trailer came out this week. The new It trailer, the first It trailer. I actually was not under the impression that they had finalized this movie, but no, apparently they filmed it. You know, this movie has been in talks, I mean, for 30 years. You know, they made a miniseries of the classic Stephen King novel back in 1990. Which, you know, aside from the Tim Curry performance of Pennywise the Clown, let's face it, is not a great movie. It's got some enduring, you know, parts to it. You know, some of the characters are really good in it. You know, you got John Ritter, of course, and what's that guy from Night Court? Harry the Hat is in it. Harry Anderson, that's his name. And, you know, you got like a young Jonathan Brandis in it and all that. From Sequest DSV. I think he died. But, yeah, the story is essentially about this town in Maine, of course, since it's Stephen King, called Derry, that's haunted by this evil presence, who oftentimes takes the form of this circus clown, you know. And in the book, I mean, you know, it takes many different forms, like, you know, evil homeless men and spiders, stuff like that. But, so they've been talking about trying to make this movie for years, and I think, like, they were going to make it a few years ago, but then that, what is it, that remake of Poltergeist came out, and it used a clown, you know, that toy clown doll that attacks the kid at the end of the movie in all of its marketing material. And the Poltergeist remake flopped. It did not do very well. And so the executives who were making it were like, you know, people don't like scary clowns. We shouldn't make that movie. This is in an article that I read somewhere. Like, somebody in charge of making it was, like, quoted as saying that the executives freaked out because nobody wanted to go see a movie with a scary clown in it. Well, they probably didn't want to go see the Poltergeist remake because it was terrible. It sucked. It was, you know, not worth seeing. Like, the clown had nothing to do with it, so. But, yeah, they finally got it greenlit, and it looks like there's a new trailer for it. And I watched it the other day, and I gotta say, I'll play it now. And, you know, it looks pretty interesting. Although I think that they're obviously trying to capitalize off the success of Stranger Things, which came out last summer and was like a huge sleeper hit. Like, everybody watched it. It's about all these kids in the 1980s, you know, who were, you know, terrorized by some unseen force in the town. And it takes a lot of its cues from Evil Dead and It and, you know, Steven Spielberg movies. So let's check out the trailer here for the new It. And I haven't really had much time to kind of analyze it frame by frame. But yeah, let's check it out here. I'm sure there's going to be an ad beforehand. Yeah, for Silicon Valley. I'm looking forward to Silicon Valley. Yeah. All right, let's skip that ad. Keynote check. So there's Georgie.
There you go. She's all ready, Captain.
Thanks, Billy.
Getting his paper boat sealed with paraffin wax. Paraffin. This already looks way better than the miniseries from 30 years ago. There's Georgie chasing the boat down, and it goes into the sewer. What's in the sewer? Oh my God. They all float. From Stephen King's terrifying novel.
People die or disappear 6 times the national average. And that's just grown-ups. Kids are worse. Way worse.
It's a balloon floating through the classroom.
I saw something. There was this
Clown. Yeah, I saw him too.
book. It's all connected by the sewers. That's where it lives. What happened?
This is pretty scary, I gotta admit. This September. What are you afraid of?
Bill, if you'll come with me, you'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too.
September 8th. Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, that was actually a pretty effectively scary trailer. Someone who's, you know, seen every type of horror under the sun, or under the moon, you know. Yeah, that chilled me a little bit. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be pretty good. You know, obviously they're trying to capitalize off the success of Stranger Things. You know, the book, of course, the Kids takes place in the 1950s, and then the adult sections takes place in the 1980s. You know, in present day when the book was written. So of course they've updated it to all the kids are now in the 1980s, and you know, it's going to be a movie in 2 parts. Now, they haven't greenlit the second part yet with the adults, years later in the present day, going back to Maine and dealing with it. You know, which to me is, you know, silly, because honestly, if you're going to do it, you need to have some balls and just greenlit the entire movie. I mean, they've already greenlit the next 5 Iron Man movies, or, you know, Captain America Avengers movies. You know, I think that there's a big enough following of it that people are going to go see this movie. Like, just greenlit it, because the book, like, the kids are only half the story. You have to have, you have to have the adults too in order to finish it off, But that's just the culture we live in now, You no longer have just one movie, that you go and see and you're like, that was a good movie. I'm fine now. No. Whenever you leave a movie now, you have to be talking about the next movie, the next sequel. I don't know. That's just the way movies are now. I guess it's because, you can blame, I don't know, Netflix or the golden age of television, whatever you want to call it. Everything has to be binge-watched. Everything has to have like another chapter to it in order for us to be engaged, I suppose. I don't know. But, yeah, I'll definitely go check out the new It movie. Very excited. In September. All right. I got to talk about this whole Verizon Sprint fight that's going on television. All right. I rarely get pissed off by advertising, but this is just something that we have to talk about. Okay, so there was a Verizon guy, right? That guy in the little glasses, the guy who's like, "Can you hear me now?" He's walking all over the planet with a cell phone, and he's like, "Can you hear me now?" Just that was a big catchphrase about 13, 14 years ago. This guy probably bought like a beach house in Malibu, from saying, "Can you hear me now?" He had like a good life going, this little nerd, Let's see if we can find, "Can you hear me now?" Let me see if we can find one of his old videos. Yeah, here it is. Verizon wireless guy.
Can you hear me now?
Good.
Can you hear me now?
How do you build America's largest wireless network?
Can you hear me now? Good.
By never being satisfied.
Can you hear me now? Good.
Until no matter where you go,
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
your call goes through.
Can you hear me now?
Apparently this video was posted by the guy who edited the original commercial back in 2002. He said it was directed by Jesse Peretz. So this Verizon guy made a ton of money off of this ad campaign. I mean, it was a huge ad campaign, because it's something that you say, whenever you have a phone and the reception breaks up, and then you get it back, you say to the other person on the other line, you say, "Can you hear me now?" And I remember at least like 3 incidents of just being out in public, and I hear somebody say, "Can you hear me now?" And they just exchange like a knowing laugh with the person on the other line. I know, I mean, it was almost like as big as Got Milk there for a while. And I remember back in, like when I was in a sketch comedy group here in Birmingham, my friend Jason, wore glasses, and he kind of looked like that guy. So we did a sketch where he was, walking across the stage. It was actually like an interstitial thing between sketches while we were setting up for the next scene. He would just walk across the stage and say, "Can you hear me now?" And people would laugh. There wasn't even a joke to it. It was just, he looked like the guy, and he said the catchphrase. And then I think at the end of the show, like a guy dressed in a gorilla costume came out and beat him up or something. But, so yeah, I mean, this guy was very successful. Okay, so now, cut to 14 years later, I think this guy realized, oh my God, that's like the most important thing I've done with my life. Is I was on a few commercials where I like said like 5 words, and made a ton of money. And now he's wanting to, come back with his whole ad campaign, but he's doing it now for another company. I mean, okay, so that was for like Verizon, and now he's stealing that, and he's going to a computing company.
Famous "Can You Hear Me Now?"
Look, here's a whole news report about it.
Well, that pitchman is back, albeit with a new network. Take a look.
Hey, I'm Paul, and I used to ask if you could hear me now with Verizon. Not anymore. I'm with Sprint now, because guess what? It's 2016 and every network is great. In fact, Sprint's reliability is...
The ads are called Paul Switched, which, okay. The commercial aired Sunday, actually, during Game 2 of the NBA Finals, much to the enjoyment of Twitter, probably more to the enjoyment of Twitter than the actual game, which
so people are talking about
won
this
by 1.5 million.
So that wasn't even like really a story. I mean, this guy like switched sides. He bit the hand that fed him for years. I mean, can you imagine like the balls on this little nerd? You know, to switch not only providers but steal the campaign that they gave him. I don't know. I mean, this is just really sticking to my craw, you know. But here's another thing. We're talking about Silicon Valley. That guy from Silicon Valley, you know, who plays the main character on that show, the Pied Piper guy. He's in these Sprint commercials, right? Or is he in the... No, he's in these Verizon commercials. And he's coming out here and he's doing this whole mic drop thing. Yeah, here it is. Just like pushing his way through a crowd of people.
Oh, wow. What a turnout. Cammy. Marcus. Okay, other unlimited data plans haven't lived up to the name. But today, unlimited gets the network it deserves. And so do you. Verizon.
So you just drop the mic.
You need more information.
That, by the way, is one of the most annoying things when somebody comes out and like drops a mic. Like, it's not funny anymore, by the way. Okay, so Verizon now has this whole commercial where they're like, well, okay, forget you, Sprint guy. We don't need you. You can take our ad, take something that we paid you millions of dollars for, and steal it from us. We're going to come up with our own ad campaign where we had the Silicon Valley guy come out and drop mics and talk about how reliable our network is, okay? And so this Paul guy, who is now with Sprint, does a rebuttal commercial, okay? Let me see. Oh, gosh. So now here he is.
It's much more expensive. Sprint has always believed in unlimited at a fair price, which is why their unlimited plan is 50% less than Verizon and AT&T rates, with only a 1% difference in network reliability.
Now he's dropping the mic.
Plus get HD video and 10 gigabytes of mobile.
And he's like, "Can you hear that?" So not only is he stealing their catchphrase that they gave him that paid him millions of dollars, he's also now appearing in the same exact campaign ad just for another company. What is it with this guy? He's a horrible human being. Can you hear that? I had to get that off my chest. Jesus. All right, let's get out of this. Let's go down to the Video Street video store and rent us a video. Okay. This video comes to us from the retro documentary genre. We're going to drop in and see what it was like to work with Apple and Steve Jobs in 1985. Enjoy this, and I'll be back on the other side of it.
Oh, that's really... Oh, look at that!
The youthful exuberance here seems a long way from the mannered halls of 3M. But this is also a Fortune 500 company renowned for product innovation. These very young men and women are on the task force that created the Macintosh at Apple Computer and put the company back in the running with IBM. In California's Silicon Valley, time seems to be compressed, and Apple is a perfect example. In 1976, two computer whiz kids, Steve Wozniak and Stephen Jobs, designed the personal computer in Jobs' garage and managed to bring it to market a year later as the Apple II. In 1980, only 3 years later, Apple went public as a $118 million company. The following year, IBM entered the new market with its own personal computer, the PC. Industry analysts predicted that Apple, like many other smaller companies, would be forced out of business. But Stephen Jobs, now all of 28 years old and chairman of the board, was not prepared to step aside.
You know, they have 1/3 people at IBM. They've got like 350,000 people. We've got 6,000 people. Makes you wonder. I think IBM is a national treasure, what they've been able to do. And they're sort of like a jewel in many ways. And I have a great deal of respect for them. They've made Apple a lot better. By competing with IBM, we're becoming better and better each month. But there is a problem. And the problem is that they are so large and dominate certain markets so completely that I think Apple is the only thing standing between them and total industry dominance.
Apple's response to the IBM threat was the Macintosh. This Jolly Roger actually flew above the project building, which was isolated from the rest of the company. Jobs wanted his new task force to behave like pirates outside corporate law. He was determined that this team would be free to innovate unencumbered by Apple's bureaucracy. And he led the project himself. Jobs was a perfect model of the new manager as coach, cheerleader, and nourisher of champions.
He's a maniac. He's a maniacal genius. His job is to stir up everything. He's a muckraker in the classic sense of the word. He will not leave anything alone. He will not allow inadequacy or compromise to exist.
And Steve Jobs was a catalyst for us. He gave us space. He sheltered us from the corporate noise.
Yeah, there's nothing like a group effort toward a common goal to unite people. I think that was the deal.
We wanted people that were insanely great at what they did. But we're not necessarily those seasoned professionals, but who had at the tips of their fingers and in their passion the latest understanding of where technology was and what we could do with that technology, and who wanted to bring that to lots of people. So the neatest thing that happens is when you get a core group of 10 great people, it becomes self-policing as to who they let into that group. So I consider the most important job of someone like myself is recruiting.
We agonized over hiring. We had interviews. I could go back and look at some of the interviews again. They would start at 9 or 10 in the morning and go through dinner. A new interviewee would talk to everybody in the building at least once, maybe a couple times, and then come back for another round of interviews, and then we'd all get together and talk about it.
And then
before
they fill out an application.
No, they never filled out.
The most critical
Nobody
part of
ever
the
filled out
interview, at least to my mind, was when we finally decided we liked them enough to show them the Macintosh prototype, and then we sat them down in front of it. And if they just kind of were bored or said, this is a nice computer, we didn't want it. We wanted their eyes to light up and them to get really excited, and then we knew they were one of us.
And everybody just wanted to work, not because it was work that had to be done, but it was because something that we really believed in that was just going to really make a difference. And that's what kept the whole thing going.
We all wanted exactly the same thing. Instead of spending our time arguing about what the computer should be, we all knew what the computer should be, and we just went and did it.
The greatest people are self-managing. They don't need to be managed. If once they know what to do, they'll go figure out how to do it. They don't need to be managed at all. What they need is a common vision, and that's what leadership is. What leadership is having a vision, being able to articulate that so the people around you can understand it, and getting a consensus on a common vision.
You can click on a tool like a paintbrush and say, just real quickly flip out a little image of someone and say, draw an eye. Grab it with a lasso, pull it over, peel off the copy, put another paintbrush.
The Mac team's vision was an inexpensive computer as powerful and sophisticated as IBM's PC, with an added playfulness that would make it attractive to young people like themselves. And they wanted it easy to use. With Macintosh, there are no complicated commands to be memorized and typed into the machine. All you do is move an arrow with a selection device called a mouse and point to what you want from a menu of options presented on the screen.
Then the nice thing is you can copy a whole section, peel off a copy, flip it over, move in,
one of the neatest things about Macintosh was we had a chance to change the way people thought of computers. I think prior to when the personal computer stuff started happening, 5 or 6 years ago, everyone thought of computers as big, cold, impersonal, generally negative connotations associated with a computer. No one would associate the word fun and computer together.
They look at the machine and they say, it gets me in the gut. I don't know exactly how to articulate it, but it's, cute and fuzzy and warm and motherhood, I want it. And it's so funny to hear your friends say this, and your enemies say this. You've conveyed as something very, very intangible through this bunch of electronics, really. Very unemotional little pieces come together to form something that draws you, that's very approachable.
You ask yourself, why are you doing it? I'm certainly not doing it for Steve Jobs. I'm doing it for something that I think is a much greater good than that. And that's the chance to change something really, honestly, truly, for the better.
Here is how we see personal computers. Here's how we want the world to be. And here's how we're going to change. We have a vision of how we want it to be. We want to convert people. We want to make converts.
Apple bet heavily that Macintosh would attract converts. Long before the computer was completed, the company invested $20 million in this assembly plant in Fremont, California. To keep its price down, Macintosh was designed specifically to be assembled in high volume on an automated line. At the Fremont plant, one Macintosh is assembled every 27 seconds. The plant is currently producing 80,000 computers a month. Designing a state-of-the-art plant for the first time was an overwhelming task, and finding the right person to manage it proved to be just as difficult.
We went through that stage in Apple where we went out and we thought, we're going to be a big company, let's hire professional management. We went out and hired a bunch of professional management. It didn't work at all. Most of them were bozos. They knew how to manage, but they didn't know how to do anything. And so if you're a great person, why do you want to work for somebody you can't learn anything from? And you know what's interesting? You know who the best managers are? They're the great individual contributors who never, ever want to be a manager, but decide they have to be a manager because no one else is going to be able to do as good a job as them.
After hiring 2 professional managers from outside the company and firing them both, Jobs gambled on Debbie Coleman, a member of the Macintosh team. 32 years old, an English literature major with an MBA from Stanford, Debbie was a financial manager with no experience in manufacturing.
There's no way in the world anybody else would give me this chance to run this kind of operation. And I don't kid myself about that. This is an incredible high risk, both for myself personally and professionally, and for Apple as a company, to put a person like myself in this job. They're really betting on a lot of things. We're betting that my skills at organizational effectiveness, override all those, lack of technology, lack of experience, lack of, time in manufacturing. So it's a big risk, and I'm just an example, and every single person on the Mac team, almost to your, entry-level person, you could say that about. This is a place where people were afforded incredibly unique opportunities to prove that they could write the book again.
Apple released Macintosh on January 24th, 1984, hoping to sell 50,000 computers in the first 100 days on the market. 72,000 sold, and sales continue to climb. What began as a pirate venture, the bad kids in the company, has reinstated Apple as IBM's principal competitor in personal computers, and is now accounting for roughly half the company's $1.5 billion in annual sales.
The best way I came up with to affect change at Apple was by example. And that was probably more than anything else the key reason that I spent 2.5 years of my life on Macintosh, was to try by example to say, hey, here's a better way to do things. And it turns out it's worked. Most everything at Apple now has looked at the Macintosh experience and come in and said, hey, we can take a lot of these concepts and apply them, make them better in some ways, and model, every other factory we're doing now is modeled after the Macintosh factory. Every other product team that's doing new product is being modeled after the Macintosh team.
The Macintosh example demonstrates how effectively a task force can innovate when it is bound together by a shared vision and given the freedom within the corporation to find its own way. The project also attests to what can be achieved when people are recognized for their contributions. Inscribed inside the casing of every Macintosh, unseen by the consumer, are the signatures of the whole team. This is Apple's way of affirming that their latest innovation is a product of the individuals who created it, not the corporation.
Yeah. I don't really like Apple that much. I had an iPhone once, and I never could get the damn thing to pick up a signal. I was constantly saying, "Can you hear me now?" Whenever anybody called. It drove me crazy. Finally got rid of it. I should say I actually threw it up against a wall. So I got so frustrated with it, it would drop calls every time I would answer it, no matter where I was. You know. Oh, man. But welcome back in here to the studio. I'm actually going to cut tonight's show short. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm just exhausted. This is one of those nights, man, where it's just it's not up to me, it's just up to my body, you know. I'm tired. I was at work for I went into work this morning, you know, Friday morning, thinking that you know, I've got most of my work done for the week. I'm gonna come in and, you know, head out by 1 o'clock, try and take an early day, but no, just a bunch of stuff came up, and you know, man, I ended up being there later than every night this week. I was there until like 7:30, you know. And yeah, I'm just exhausted, you know. I will explain though tonight's cover for the Midnight Citizen show. A couple weeks ago, I went to eat. I actually had a gift certificate that I got for Christmas from my sister to the Outback Steakhouse, you know. And the only Outback I knew of was over at the Brook Highland Shopping Center here in Birmingham, which if you go down Highway 280 is way out there. And is a place I used to frequent quite often when I was a kid. I would go to the Brook Highland movie theaters where I saw a bunch of movies. And I think the last movie I remember seeing there is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang back in like 2005 or 2006. And the movie theater was torn down years ago, and if you go there now, you would not recognize it at all. It's like a Whole Foods type, you know, like a health food store or something like that now. You know, it's just so sad when they tear down these movie theaters and gut them from the inside out until they're entirely unrecognizable. You know, all those memories you made there, you know. And just walking around the shopping center, just, you know, nothing looked the same. But I rounded a corner, and lo and behold, there was still an original Books-A-Million store. You know, Books-A-Million is an Alabama-based company. As a matter of fact, I work less than 2 blocks away from their corporate headquarters. And, you know, I had a job years ago at Books-A-Million, working in the Joe Muggs coffee shop. And it was one of the damned most depressing jobs I had ever had, actually. I just would work there. Nobody would ever come in the stores, you know, the nights that I was working. I would always work, like, during the week. And I would work until 11 o'clock at night, and just nobody would ever come in. And sometimes, like, the CEO of the company would come in and order a coffee from me and just sit in the cafe and read the newspaper, which made me very nervous, you know. And I don't know, there was just a depressing vibe about that place, you know. Just nobody was ever there, just the boring Muzak that was playing. And I think at the time, just I was very single, so I would get off work every night and just go home to an empty apartment, you know, like put a pizza in the oven, you know, and go to class the next day, and then, you know, go back to work from, you know, 2 o'clock to, you know, midnight, you know. And what's more is that I would never work with anybody else in the cafe. It's one of those places where it's like it only took one person to run it, so I never saw any of the other people that I worked with except when I was changing shifts with them. And, you know, so we had this, like, binder, this communication log that we would use to, like, communicate with each other, you know. It was like we didn't have text messaging, so, I mean, I guess we had phones, but, you know, who wants to, you know, pick up a phone? So I would pass most of the slow nights just writing bizarre short stories in this binder for the next person the next day to read, you know. That was how I passed the time, you know. And just everybody who worked in the store was very distant. You know, nobody ever came over to talk to me. So I would just go hours and on end without serving a customer or talking to another person. It was like really like living like a hermit there in the Books A Million, you know. But it was this particular store layout where it was just, you know, it was a big flat layout, a big box store with no character to it at all, just like shelves of books that just said fiction and, you know, children's books and all that. It just had no character, you know. So Books A Million rebranded itself and started to build more, you know, stores with more character. But they also went out of business at the same time, or they were, you know, they had to close up a lot of their stores. Like the store that I worked in is now a Planet Fitness, of course, you know. But I was so surprised to go to the Brook Highland Shopping Center and just see an original layout of a Books A Million, you know. And just walking in the store, there was the same kind of setup as the one that I had worked in, you know, years ago. And just walking in, I was immediately hit with this smell, you know, that just took me back. It was like the smell. I don't know what it is. It's like the chemical reaction of like the frozen coffee drinks mixed with the, you know, paper and all the books. You know, it just kind of creates this weird, you know, to the retail bookmarks they sell. I don't know. But it just immediately like put me back in that time, that very depressing time when I worked for Books A Million back in like 2003, you know. And I had to take a picture. That's the photo that you see tonight, you know, for this week's episode of the Midnight Citizen Show. So, but thank you so much for joining me here tonight in the studio. I will probably not be here next week. I will actually probably have to skip a week of the Midnight Citizen Show. This next weekend I will be in Chattanooga at the Chattanooga Film Festival. I've been there the last 3 years. And I'm going to get a cabin up there with some friends. We're going to go see Joe Bob Briggs, who is now considered the patron saint of the Chattanooga Film Festival. Of course, Joe Bob Briggs used to host Monster Vision on TNT and Drive-In Theater on the Movie Channel. And one of the great B-movie drive-in critics of all time. Check out his website over at joebobbriggs.com. I'm excited to hear him speak. And also check out my friend Josh's comic strip over at rgbros.com. He should be finishing it up right about now as I'm finishing up my podcast. You know. So. But please leave a comment and let me know that, you know, all this is not in vain. No, I'm just joking. Yeah. I do get a lot of satisfaction, even if I do a show that I don't feel good how it turned out at the end of it. I feel a lot of satisfaction just from doing the show, even if nobody listens to it, you know. Something that exists outside of work that nobody has control over but me, you know. And, yeah, this is my deep breath that I take while I'm drowning. So, I'll see you next time here in the studio. Keep your eyes open.